Okay, so hello to those of you that joined us. We'll give it another couple of minutes just to wait for some more people to join in. So just give it another minute or so. Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear us. We have Neil with us today for a presentation on health checks. So just got a few more people coming into our group. That's nice. Got lots of attendance. Great. Okay, so if you've just joined us, we've got Neil Hayden here joining us from Provide, giving us a presentation on health checks, and also we'll have a little chat from Hema, Cross Pharmacy, and Cranthi from Savages, and we'll bring them on towards the end. Thank you for coming and joining us today. Neil, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Welcome everyone. So my name's Neil Hayden. I work for Provide. So I sit under the Essex Wellbeing Service operations team. So my main role is to sort of coordinate clinics for health checks in the community. So we support all the GPs across Essex. So sometimes we're directing patients into your pharmacies for the NHS health check as well. So I was asked to come along today to do a presentation on sort of the health checks and the flow of the health check when it's being done. I'm aware that you all use, I believe a lot of you use farmer outcomes. We actually don't use farmer outcomes, but the health check is obviously the same. So I'll go through the presentation and then we can maybe do a few questions at the end if you want to. So what I'll do is I'll share my screen and hopefully it works okay. Just doing that now.
And just while Neil is doing that, just to let you all know that we are recording this session.
Has that come up on your computer okay?
Yes, we've got that, Neil. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So the NHS Health Check is obviously a national programme for people aged 40 to 74. So when people call the Essex Wellbeing Service, we obviously always run through a criteria. They're invited via the GPs, but some people might walk into the pharmacy to see you for an NHS health check randomly. So this is just the criteria for people who are eligible for the NHS health check. If people have been directed to you from the Essex Wellbeing Service, they would have already been vetted because they would have had an actual physical invite from us to say you're eligible for the health check. But you may have someone walking into the pharmacy who is interested in a check. So you should try and make sure that they are eligible for the check. So the criteria is they should be aged between 40 and 74. Sometimes you get a lot of people saying, why can't I have one if I'm slightly older than 74? That's because they go and have a senior health check at the GP. So it's not that we cannot do it. It just has to be done via the GP practice. They should be registered with a local GP or living in Essex. They shouldn't be taking blood pressure medication or cholesterol medication, which is statins. The reason is, again, is because they're being treated for what we're trying to flag up. All right. So if they're already on medication to lower their risk of heart disease, then obviously we don't need to screen them because they're being treated for it already. They should not known to have diabetes, not had a stroke, not had a heart attack, not diagnosed with coronary heart disease or had heart failure, got heart failure, not diagnosed with peripheral artery disease, not diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, not got atrial fibrillation, and not had a health check in the last 5 years. So majority of the patients will know whether they've got them things. The one at the bottom, not had a health check in the last 5 years, sometimes they're unsure when they last had a checkup. You haven't got access to what we call System 1, where we can actually check whether they're fully eligible, but we have to just vet them sort of verbally. And if they don't think they've had one in 5 years, just that's okay. Just accept that, and you can go ahead with and complete the health check. So let's move on to the next one. So the components of the health check. So to have a full NHS health check, all these components need to be done. So you've got the physical examination. So we'd take the height and weight of a patient, and from that we'd calculate their body mass index. We'd take a waist circumference measurement for them. So the official stance for that is the bottom bit of the rib and the hip in the middle. But the easiest way that we do it is we'd sort of do 2 fingers above the belly button and measure around the waist. We'd take a blood pressure reading for the patient, and on the blood pressure machine, it'll also measure their pulse. We use a special blood pressure machine which actually does atrial fibrillation as well. So I'm not sure whether you use them machines as well, but it will detect if there's any irregular beats of the heart. So as well as the physical examination, we do lifestyle questions. So we find out whether the client's a smoker. We ask them family history questions in relation to heart disease. We will find out how much physical activity they're doing, both at work and in their own sort of time, leisure time. And we'd focus on their alcohol consumption as well, which I'll come on to a little bit later. And also part of the health check is taking a blood sample. So we use what we call a POCT machine, a point of care testing machine, where we take a little bit of blood and we do their total cholesterol. It will also do their HDL, so high density lipoprotein, the good cholesterol as a easiest way I say it, H meaning happy cholesterol, and then it works out the total cholesterol and HDL ratio. All right, so they're the components of the health check that should be getting done in the pharmacy if someone comes in for a checkup. I'm aware some of you probably might already do the health check. Some of you might be brand new to and never done one. So I'm just going to go through sort of the flow of the health check as I would do it. So first of all, when they've come into the pharmacy and they've sat down with you, I'd always do a quick introduction of what's going to happen at the health check, just to put the patient at ease. So I would say something like this: thank you for coming in for your NHS health check today. My name's Neil. Today we'll be looking at risk factors of heart disease. We'll take your weight, height, waist circumference, test your cholesterol levels by taking a finger prick of blood. We'll take your blood pressure and ask you some questions about your lifestyle. And after collecting all these results, we'll calculate your risk of heart disease in the next 10 years. And that term's referred to as someone's Q risk score. You'll get the results on a leaflet to take away. Are you okay with that? That's how I'd quickly introduce it. Obviously, everyone's going to say yes because they've come in for the health check. Some people might say about taking the blood and be a bit wary of it, but it is just a finger prick. It's not a full blood test. So then the second part of the screen, I would tend to get I tend to get them up and doing their height and weight and waist straight away, because then they can sit down and not have to keep getting up and down. It might be different for you of how it comes up on your farmer outcomes if there's a flow to it, but I'll take the patient's height, weight, and do their waist circumference, again 2 fingers above the belly button, and I'd calculate their BMI. Your system might do it automatically. If it doesn't and you have to manually calculate it, the calculation is weight in kilograms. Make sure you've got it in kilograms, and divided by height in meters squared. So just the example there, if someone weighs 70 kilograms, you divide it by, and if it was 1.7 in height, so you do 70 divided by 1.7, press the equals button on a calculator, divide it by 1.7 again, and the BMI would come up as 24.22, which would be in the nice healthy weight bracket. It's just good to know that, especially if like IT fails and you have to work it out yourself. Obviously, you can get apps on your phone and things like that to do that. So the third part of it, I'd go on to ask lifestyle questions. So we need to find out whether what their smoking status is. So I tend to say, do you smoke? And they'll answer yes or no. If they do say yes, I always try and find out how many they do smoke a day, just for notes, and you can put some information down on the system. If they do say no, I ask them, have you ever smoked? Are you an ex-smoker? They might have recently quit, which obviously will affect their risk at the end. How many years have you been smoke free? All right, and make a note down on your paperwork or on the system. We'll go on to referrals later, because obviously if someone's a smoker, I don't tend to get into a conversation straight away with someone. I wait till I've got all the information, and at the end I would go through all the results and say, let's look at referrals, or let's look at what we can do to improve your health. So after I found out the smoking status, I'll go on to the family history of heart disease. So it is quite a specific question on this. So it's, has your parents or brothers or sisters ever had a heart attack or angina under the age of 60? Yes or no. Some people would say my grandparents had a heart attack, but we do tend to just go parents or brothers or sisters and not too many generations back on that. If they do answer yes to that, if someone's had a heart attack, for instance, at age 50, it will have an impact on their Q risk score, their overall risk score at the end of the test. I do ask sometimes a couple of questions to the patients as well, and sort of say, what was their lifestyle like? They might have been like a heavy smoker, heavy drinker, totally different lifestyle to what the patient actually was, just for my own sort of knowledge on that. After we've asked the family history question, we'd ask questions on physical activity levels. So the first few questions that you might have is, what do you do for a living? Like, do you work? Some people are retired. Some people have got a desk job. Some people are standing a little bit in their job. Or then you've got the more physical jobs, like, for instance, builders and scaffolders and really sort of heavy manual jobs. So that will impact on how active someone is. So we'll find out that, and then we'd ask some questions on, do you do actually any physical activity? I tend to say that raises your heart rate and keeps it raised, because we're looking at heart health. Remember, a lot of people do obviously walking, which is brilliant. We do want people walking. Some people don't raise their heart rate too much when they're walking. Some people walk quite a lot and walk quite briskly. So it is a bit of a judgment on that. You may have questions that you have to tick, and it'll actually give you the answer at the end, whether someone's very active or moderately active or inactive. So the questions are based on finding out whether the patient is doing 150 plus minutes a week of raising their heart rate. So it's about 30 minutes per day is the public health message. And obviously, if someone's fit and able, they might do even more than that. But the key is getting that heart rate raised, because remember, it's a muscle and we want to stress it a little bit, just like if we're lifting things with our arms and legs and things like that. Next slide. So after that, we'll go on to finding out someone's alcohol consumption. So with the Audit C, there's usually 3 questions at the start. So it's how often do you have a drink containing alcohol? And there's different scenarios. So there's never less than monthly, couple of times a month, a few times a week, or 4 or more times a week. And then it's how many units of alcohol do you drink on a typical day when you do have a drink. Lots of people wouldn't have a clue about units. They just know how much they drink. I will come on to a little bit of that in a minute. Roughly, it's mainly sort of beer and wine and like a spirit. So I usually do a bit of a judgment myself. So if someone that has a beer, like a pint of beer, is just over 2 units. A medium-sized glass of wine's roughly about just over 2 units as well. So if they've had sort of 2 pints of beer, it'll be 4 units. I can quickly put that in the system. And then the next question is, how often would you have 6 or more units if female, or 8 or more units if male, on a single occasion? So maybe if they're going out on a weekend or a party, they might have a bit more. So after you've answered them 3 questions, it will give you a score. Normally, if it's 5 or more, we have to go on and ask more questions. If it's under 5, we don't. We've completed the audit. Okay, so if someone answers and gets 5 or more, we'd put, it might be the same on your pharma outcomes, we'd put a 5 here, and we'd go on to ask what we call the full Audit C. So we have to go through these questions. So how often in the last year have you found you're not able to stop drinking once you started? So most people could stop drinking, but this is to find out if there's any dependence on drinking alcohol. How often in the last year have you failed to do what's normally expected of you because of you drinking? So that might be not being able to go to work, not being able to drive because you've been drinking, not being able to take the kids to school, something like that. How often during the last year have you needed an alcoholic drink in the morning to get yourself going? Most people will have a little sort of chuckle to themselves and say no, but okay, it's very rare you'd find someone dependent, but you might get the odd one. I did get one the other day. How often during the last year have you had a feeling of guilt or remorse after drinking? Sometimes if they've got a bit of a hangover, they might say yes. And on the screen it says never, but there's scenarios, so it might be less than monthly, weekly, or daily, and you can key in what it is. How often during the last year have you been unable to remember what's happened the night before because of your drinking? Have you or someone else been injured as a result of your drinking, and has a relative, friend or doctor or health worker been concerned and said you should cut down? And then after you've answered them questions, it will give you a total score at the bottom, and you'll see at the bottom, so it's 0 to 7 low risk, 8 to 15 increasing risk, or 16 plus high risk, and 20 plus possible dependence on alcohol. So it's just a conversation starter there. Sometimes if people are drinking a bit too much, I tend to say let's discuss it at the end, and we'll see if it's having an effect on the blood pressure, because sometimes it can do, put people's blood pressures up. Let's go on to the next slide. So after we've answered them questions, we would then get set up to take the little bit of blood from the finger for the cholesterol. So cholesterol is the fat in your blood. So obviously make sure you've got your gloves on and your PPE. Never take blood without your gloves on. So you'd clean the tip of the finger. So we use like an alcohol swab that we just wipe the tip of the finger. We use a lancet to pierce the skin, and once we've pierced the skin, we'd wipe away the first little bit of blood with a bit of cotton wool, just because there might be a bit of debris in there, a bit of skin, for it, because you just pierced it. So we wipe that bit away, and then we'd squeeze the finger and form like a ball of blood on the finger, and we use a little pipette, and we just place that pipette on the side of the ball of blood, and it will draw it up the pipette. I think you use all the same equipment as we do. You'd have the pop machine in front of you, like the cholesterol machine, and it'll be turned on, and you put a cholesterol strip into it, and you'd lightly squeeze the ball of blood onto that machine. All right, and then the machine will come up and it will say testing. All right, it will usually take roughly 2 minutes to come back and give you the results, and it will give you a total cholesterol reading. And you press the little arrow button on the machine, and it will give you the HDL. And you press the arrow again, and it will give you the total HDL reading. So make sure you've wrote that down or entered it onto your computer. So understanding the cholesterol reading. So some of you might be fully au fait with this, some of you might be brand new to it. So healthy readings on the left hand side. So the total cholesterol reading that comes up on the machine, we're trying to aim for it to be less than 5. Okay. The HDL readings, this is the good cholesterol for men. We want it to be 1 or more if we can. And for females, it's 1.2 or more. All right. And then the ratio between the total cholesterol and the good, we want it to be less than 4, to be in the what we call the green zone. So the really sort of healthy zone. In terms of making a GP referral or advising them to see their GP, if the total cholesterol score on its own is 7.5 millimoles or above, we would say to them, you need to book an appointment with your GP, and they would send them for a full blood test. Or the ratio between the total cholesterol and the HDL is 6 or more, we'd ask them to go and see their GP there. So the top scenario, you see the boxes there. So you might have someone with a total cholesterol of 4.99. So it's just the reason why is green, because it would be green on like the results form. So that's good. And their HDL, I've highlighted that red because it's a little bit lower than what we want. So 0.89. So imagine this is a man, for instance. So that one's red. So overall, the ratio, so 0.89 divided into 4.99, overall the ratio would be 5.6. So it's just, that'll be sort of in the middle. So that's why we've put the orange sort of box around that. So it's not enough to refer to a GP, but it's just, so one was really good, one was a bit low. So overall it's in the middle. And then the bottom scenario, you've got someone with a total cholesterol is a bit above 5, so it's not excessively above 5, it's 5.89, so that's in the middle zone. And then they've got loads of good cholesterol in their system, so their HDL is 2.25. So overall 2.25 divided into 5.89, their ratio, which we want that under 4, is overall in the green, so it's 2.5. I'm sorry, 2.6. So on that bottom scenario, we can still give a little bit of advice to lower this total cholesterol, looking at saturated fats. But overall, they've got lots of good cholesterol in terms of to help clean up their arteries. All right. So just a little bit of knowledge. So imagine sort of that's your artery. All right. So you got the blood flowing through the artery, and the cholesterol is in the blood. So the blood pressure is the arteries, sort of the blood hitting against the edges of them artery walls. Okay, so if you imagine if your blood pressure is a little bit raised or it's higher, it's going to be hitting them artery walls a bit more forcefully. It's going to be causing microscopic damage to the edges of them artery walls, so making it a little bit rough. The easiest way to explain it. So when the blood's flowing through, the cholesterol starts to what we call fur the arteries. All right, so it start attaching to the artery walls, causing furring. So the good cholesterol will sort of pick up the bad cholesterol, take it back to the liver to get rid of it out of the body, to try and sort of stop this furring happening. So if you've got lots of good cholesterol, there'll be less build-up of plaques, if that makes sense. So if part of this plaque against the artery wall was to break away and go to a smaller arteriole, it's going to potentially clog it, block it up, and then lead to chest pain and serious problems. All right, so that's what we're trying to stop happening overall, is the build up of the cholesterol in the artery walls. So blood pressure. So we'd obviously take a blood pressure reading using the blood pressure cuff. Our machines that we use automatically do 3 readings. So it gives us, sorry, not 3 readings. It goes up and down 3 times, and it'll give us 1 reading at the end. It'll give an average of the 3 readings. If you're using a machine that only does 1 reading, if it's the blood pressure is above 140 over 90, or the top one's above 140 and the bottom one's above 90, you'd wait a few minutes and do it again. All right. And if it doesn't come down below 140 over 90, we advise them to go to their GP for a follow-up. All right, with it could be with the GP or with a nurse. The BP machine will do the pulse as well, so you haven't got to do that manually. And obviously that's the number of beats of the heart in a minute. So we roughly want it 120 over 80 or 130 over 80. Anything over 140 over 90 is looking at starting to get a little bit higher, and we'd ask them to see the GP. Next slide. So once we've got all them readings, so we've got the height, the weight, the waist, blood pressure, we've asked some lifestyle questions, we've done the cholesterol readings, etc. When we can calculate someone's Q risk score. So this is really just the risk of someone having a heart attack or a stroke in the next 10 years based on everything that they've told us, whether they smoke, whether they've got family history of having heart disease in their family, and what their cholesterol levels are, etc. Whatever you key into the system in terms of Q, your system might automatically calculate it. We have to actually put it into the Q risk algorithm, which we just use Google for, and search Q risk. So whatever you key in affects the overall percentage risk score at the end. So if someone's got 160 systolic blood pressure on the time you see them, it's going to put their risk up. If they go home and it was 130, then obviously the risk score would come down. So you can only go on what the scores are when you've seen them. So algorithm will give you the 10-year risk Q risk percentage, the score of a typical person who's the same age, sex, and ethnicity. So that's a good one to look at sometimes. You might get a 40-year-old, for instance, who's quite unhealthy. They smoke, they drink quite a lot, they're quite overweight, and their overall risk of having a heart attack in the next 10 years might be quite low still because they're only 40. So the risk score might be something like 4%. Whereas when it comes up the average risk of where they should be, it might say 0.5%. So actually, it's a good way of sort of saying to them, don't think you're doing as well as you should be, because you should be at 0.5% and you're coming up at 4%. So that's a good one to look at, especially for the younger generation if they've got an unhealthy lifestyle. Because people think, oh, I'm only 4%, and they think they can get away with carrying on smoking and drinking and being unhealthy, really. And then the last bit is the heart age. Okay. So it will tell you sort of if they're aged sort of 50, if they're really healthy, they might come up their heart rate age is 47. If they've got really good scores, if they're really unhealthy, it might come up a few years older. So it gives them a bit of a kick start, thinking, oh, I need to make some changes in my lifestyle. Next slide. So I'm just showing you this because this is what we have to do. It might be totally different for you, but so when we'd go onto Google and literally write Q risk free up, you could have access to this as well, and this would come up, this Q risk algorithm. So we have to enter the age at the top, click whether they're male or female. We have to put in ethnicity and also their postcode, because it will take into effect of where they live. If they live in a deprived area, it'll put their risk slightly changed because of that. Then you've got the smoking status. So if they told you they're a smoker, ex-smoker, or non-smoker, it actually says, when you actually tick on it, it comes up light smoker, moderate, or high smoker. So it's in like less than 10 cigarettes, 10 to 20, or over 20, because that'll have an impact on their risk. And then the third bit down, it says angina or heart attack in first degree relatives. So we have to tick that if they've said they've got family history. Majority of the time it will be left blank. Okay, then we'd leave the rest of it because they wouldn't be coming in to see us if they're on blood pressure treatment or anything. And then we'd go down and enter the cholesterol HDL ratio. So we put that in that box. We only enter the systolic blood pressure, which come up on the blood pressure reading in that box, put their height and weight in, and click calculate. So on this image, it's got 13.8%. The average risk, you might see at the bottom of that screen, it says 16.6. So they're slightly better than where they should be. Heart age of 62. And as you see at the top left, we're putting that the patient 64. So that means that out of 100 people, there are 13 people chance of having a heart attack in the next 10 years. So when you get a sort of above 10%, you sort of getting in a more risky zone. So you might get like an older person who's age 70, for instance. They could be really healthy according to the scores, but because they're older and it's a 10-year risk score. So between 70 and 80, that is the risky age of having a heart attack or a stroke, isn't it? So they might be quite high on the Q risk score. So we do advise. I mean, we say to see their GP and discuss it if it goes over 10%, because we haven't got access to pharmaceutical interventions. But over 20%, it's 1 in 5 chance of having a heart attack in the next 5 years. So that's when the GP might put them on preventive medication, statins or blood pressure medication. This is the results sheet that we use. I think Essex Wellbeing Service provide pharmacies with these, I believe. So you can give these as a bit of a handout at the end. So we'd obviously write the height, the weight, the waist, and write all the results down on there. And then at the end, when I've wrote it all down, I tend to go through and circle where they come. All right, so I don't circle it before. So when I'm going through the results, I'd say, right, your BMI is 27.5, and I'd circle the middle increasing risk zone on there. And then waist, for instance, and you can go through and tick the greens and the oranges and the reds, just so they can see where they're falling short or whether they need to make health improvements on there. It's a good little tool to give out. Discussing the results. Obviously, this is a key part to it. So it's all right doing the health check, but having discussing the results and seeing what they can improve on. So based on that result sheet, so is the patient overweight? So we can discuss the weight management option for them. I mean, I know some of your pharmacies offer weight management support in-house. If you don't, you can make a referral or signpost them to call the Essex Wellbeing Service, where we can support them with that. What were their activity levels? So we can, if they're overweight and their activity levels were really low, we can have the discussion of increasing that, looking at the diet to obviously reduce calorie intake. Is their waist circumference too large? Obviously, weight loss would help that as well. The good thing about BMI, you're obviously aware that BMI in certain individuals, they might have a higher than 25 BMI. They might be quite a stocky, maybe man, or for instance, or quite an athletic build or muscular build. Sometimes if they've got a triangular shape to their body, they might be over on the BMI, but actually under on the waist. So it just goes to show that of their body shape. So it's good to look at that. We can look at, was their blood pressure raised? So do they need to lose, if it was, do they need to lose weight? Could they increase their physical activity? Do they need to reduce their alcohol, depending on what their audit score was? Can they reduce salt? Do they smoke? Do they need to quit smoking? So all things that would affect the blood pressure. You can have that conversation depending on what's on the result sheet. Was their total cholesterol high? If it was, can they reduce saturated fats? So that's like the hard fats at room temperature. So typical ones like cheese, butter, cakes, biscuits, crisps, them sorts of things. Fatty meats, bacon, sausages, pastries, pies, them sorts of things. They can reduce trans fats in their diet as well. And can they increase their unsaturated fats? All right. Can they stop smoking? Smoking will decrease the HDL, the sort of the good cholesterol. So obviously a very good thing to try and get them to stop smoking if they are a smoker. Was their HDL, the good cholesterol, too low? If that is the case, you need to try and talk to them about increasing the unsaturated fats, the healthy fats in their diet. So more oily fish, increasing fruits and vegetables, whole grains, stopping smoking, and also increasing physical activity will help with that as well. Do they need to increase their activity levels? Depends on what they told you. Do they need to reduce their alcohol consumption? So it used to be 21 units for men and 14 for women. It's now 14 units across the board. It's quite easy to get to that 14 units. Explaining the Q risk to them. So use it as a percentage score. So if they've got 10%, it's 10 people in 100 in the next 10 years to have a heart attack or a stroke. So it just what puts it into context from a bit more. So if they're 20%, which is obviously very high, it's 20 people in 100, so it's 1 in 5 per people. And then you can look at what is their Q risk compared to other people their age. So like I said, a younger generation, you can probably say, look, you need to quit smoking, you need to do this and that. Okay. On to the next one. A little bit of useful alcohol information. So medium-sized glass of wine, 2.1 units roughly. large glass of wine is 3 units. People will sometimes, if they're having home measured, they're probably having bigger glasses of wine. So you can ask that question when they're talking about their drinking. Do you drink at a pub and having a pub measure, or drinking at home and having a home measure? A strong beer would be 3 units. A normal beer would roughly be 2 units, and a short, like a shot of I don't know, gin or whiskey, might be 1 unit. So it depends on how many they're having. Are they having doubles when they have a drink, for instance? It's good basic knowledge to have, knowing sort of the units. Dementia risk factors. If what we have to do is, if someone's over 65, we have to raise the subject of dementia. We give them a dementia leaflet that we get from the Health Checks website, where it's got resources on there. I believe we get them from there. So dementia risk factors exactly the same for everyone else, really. So trying to be physically active, not drinking too much alcohol, trying to have as good of a diet as you can, not smoking, and trying to keep a healthy weight and not be overweight. So obviously, if you're trying to do that, it reduces the risks of dementia there. And the last slide is when to refer on. All right. So if someone's got a BMI of over 25, can you support them in pharmacy, or can you refer to us? Do they want to quit? Again, can you support them, or if you can't, if you're not doing it in-house, refer to us. Alcohol dependency, you can refer to Essex Wellbeing Service and we'll signpost on. And then when to send them to the GP. BMI, if it's over 30 and the waist is high as well, you can refer for a diabetes screen, because we don't do that. Blood pressure over 140/90, total cholesterol over 7.5, cholesterol ratio over 6, irregular pulse for an ECG just to detect that. They say pulse outside the ranges of a 60 to 100. So I always use discretion on that, because I don't want to send them loads of people to the GP if they've got a pulse of like 58, if they're an athlete or something, or do a lot of exercise. So use your judgment on that. Or if someone's got a Q risk score of over 10%, all right, we'd send to the GP. All right. That's my last slide. So I'll come back to you if that's all right.
Thank you, Neil. That was
All
great.
right.
Yeah, thank you very much. And do we have any questions for Neil? If you do want to speak to Neil, don't forget to take your mute off, take yourself off mute.
Hello, it's Anita here at Cross.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Would you be able to send us your PowerPoints, Neil, via email, please?
Yeah, if I send it over to Lisa and then
yes, and I will forward it on.
Lovely, thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, just to make sure that we have got your email address, if it's one that doesn't appear on our regular email, but we'll be sending it out to the pharmacies.
Lovely, thank you.
Anything else from anyone? Okay. Neil, you'll be hanging on, will you, with us for the next sort of little
yeah,
while?
I can hang on. Yeah, it's not a problem.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great, because we've got two of our fantastic pharmacists with us today. Lots of fantastic pharmacists, but two have kindly volunteered to speak for us today. First of all, I want to introduce Hema. So, Hema, if you want to take yourself off mute, Hema's going to just give us a little bit of an insight into how their pharmacy generates uptake, because they're doing fantastic with people coming into the pharmacy. Now, obviously, Provide will send referrals out to your pharmacies, so they'll be signposting them to you. But we want you to be generating uptake yourselves. So, Hema, have you got some good tips for us?
So we've just really taken on board the Making Every Contact Counts training. So we get lots of people in here for, especially in winter, for their minor ailments, for their pharmacy first stuff, and quite often some of those people will be like your 40-year-old who has ignored all the text messages about their health check. And then we would say, oh, by the way, have you had a recent health check? And then we sort of get them in that way. We are in, like, I'm going to say, competition with our GPs. Our GPs are very proactive in this area and doing health checks. So a lot of the time when we get an eligible patient, they've either had it or they have been approached by the GP, but they've ignored the text message. So it's the people that are ignoring the text message, but they've come in now because they're a bit sick and we've got them. So we'd either, we don't always do it in the moment, although Anita, I do throw Anita in there a lot of the time, and I'm like, can you do one now? And it's like 5:30. But sometimes I just want to get the patient in while I can. But it's literally about making every contact count. So as well as that flagging scripts, which we have periods where we do it a lot and then we don't, and then we do it. But especially in the winter and the flu season, where we were having lots of people coming through our doors, especially for like flu jabs and things like that. It's not just doing the flu jab, especially whoever's vaccinated would be looking at, okay, they've got a flu jab. They're probably, they might be here because they're asthmatic, but then they're like 45, they're not on anything else, so they're already, you're thinking this patient's eligible, and then either they have or haven't had the health check. But that's how we generated quite a few leads in this busy winter flu season. But it is busy and our rooms are in use, hence we didn't always get them in to have the health check at that moment in time because we had a busy flu clinic, COVID clinic, we do RSV here, but it's about booking them back in. And then some people don't turn up, but then we use AccuRx here, which is free for everyone to use. And then we would just send them a follow-up text to say, oh, you missed your health check. And then I feel like they do like read it and they do respond. And sometimes we'll call them saying you've missed your appointment today, and then they'll come back. So yeah, we don't do it always in the moment, sometimes depending on our availability. Obviously we have got 2 consultation rooms here, but they are in use. So we work around that by booking them an appointment most of the time, get them to come back. But also that way we found that the people who we've done in the moment, sometimes they haven't drunk enough water, and that's we've had the pop clocks failed and we've wasted a test, and then they've said insufficient blood sample or patient hasn't drank enough water. So actually getting them back when they've flushed through water is actually sometimes a bit better. So yeah, that's how we've increased our uptake. And then also like working as a team in here, so it's not just the pharmacist flagging people, it's not just one person doing the health checks. Anita's our champion at Cross, but we sometimes, so Anita's trained a couple of other ladies here at Cross, so then we can sort of distribute the workload, but also we refer people to one at some of our other sites. So we might book someone in at Arundel Pharmacy or Benfleet Pharmacy, and I know Cranthea, she does Thursdays for us as well at Elora, and she's sort of getting the guys on board there to flag and get people in that way, through like flagging prescriptions and getting people in at the counter. So we're like sort of spreading our workload amongst the workforce, so it's not just like only on the health champion, because we're getting more and more people onboarded onto PopDoc and training them how to use it. So actually a health check can be done, like, you know, not just when that person's in, it can be done whenever. But we just got one person sort of championing that in each site, and it's working really well, in my opinion, anyway. But like I said, the only thing is we are somewhat in competition with the GP, so quite often I get there and they've already had it, because I think GPs, they can just text easier, so they send the text out, and not everyone will ignore it, which is a good thing. They're taking it up. But we're getting the people that have ignored the text, and then we're like, oh, you're here now, do you want a health check? And then they can't really say no.
Yeah, I think that's really, really great, actually, Emma, because, you know, we get a lot of pharmacies that find where the health checks are being done at the GP surgery quite frequently, that they're not getting any uptake in the pharmacy, and yet you're doing it. you're getting that uptake because, okay, so you've said you've got your whole team talking to your customers about the health check. So everyone knows that you provide it, and sometimes you're able to do it on the spot, otherwise you're booking them in, but you're always having those making every contact count conversations, which is key, isn't it? And you said you about flagging prescriptions. Is
Yeah.
sticker you're putting on prescriptions?
Sorry?
Are you putting stickers on prescriptions? Is
We
that
just
what you're doing?
annotate it like HC health check, and so some of our sites don't actually have we're like paperless, so we're just on dispensing. Then whoever's dispensing or whoever's clinically checking the prescription would have to flag it at that stage.
Okay, great. And are you doing anything on social media to advertise your health
No,
check?
we haven't actually, but I'm wondering. I took because we're doing a lipids project with Bart's Health at the moment, so a little bit overlap. But we did talk about having a till point sort of it's like a talking card. They used to call it when I used to work for Lloyd's. But you put it at the till, and it's not little. It's quite like it's like a struck card thing that you put at the till. So when they're paying it, and just put because the eligibility criteria is quite specific. So you kind of have to talk to them before you think, right, yep, they're over 48. Okay, yeah, they're not got any other diagnosed with hypertension or something, and then you find out that they've had a health check. So you've just got, but whereas having that some sort of, but there was nothing available that I know of, and I said to the guy at Bart's, maybe we'll design something, but I haven't done the designing. I wonder if yeah, maybe I should reach out for some help on that. But yeah, and then we could get it put right at the till, but not a piece of paper, like more like a card that's at the front. Because we do also have the screens, the digital screens, and we do advertise on that.
Oh, great. Okay, yeah, that's good. And I know some pharmacies are, sort of advertising it on their Facebook pages, that they're doing health checks, stop smoking support, etc. So so that's great. And I think you've got to try all different things, haven't you, really, and see what works for you. And obviously that the whole team effort is working for you very well. I've actually got Crancy here as well. Now, if you remember, in October, we asked you to give us any really positive stories that you had as a result of health checks. And Crancy had a fantastic one. So she's going to share it with us. And Crancy, I have actually created just a slide with the information that you sent us, so I can put that up as well whilst you're talking to us. So if you'd like to give us your case study, show us, just tell everyone what happened really when you had that client in front of you.
Sure. Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kranti. The pharmacist is based at Savage's Pharmacy in Burnham on Crouch, and I also work for Elora Pharmacy in Benfleet. I just want to share my experience of doing health checks in community pharmacy by using the making every contact count approach while providing the services in community pharmacy. I had quite a few successful outcomes, but I'm just going to share a couple of them to you today. As we recently did the flu vaccination program, a patient attended the pharmacy for a private flu vaccination. And as a part of the consultation, I just offered the blood pressure check using the making every contact count approach. So during our discussion, I realized that he had not had a health check in the past 5 years. I therefore offered him an NHS health check appointment. And obviously during the health check, while doing the health check, and did the cholesterol check, blood pressure, and all other parameters. And his clinical blood pressure was elevated. So I offered him the ABPM to obtain a more accurate assessment. And the ABPM results showed that he had stage 1 hypertension, which I subsequently escalated it to the GP. And also the cholesterol test gave raised triglyceride levels as well. We use POC-DOC system to point of care testing for the cholesterol. And I explained to the patient what the high triglyceride levels mean and how could have affect his cardiovascular health, and also provided a brief lifestyle intervention, including advice about diet, exercise, and also alcohol moderation and things like that. At the end of the consultation, the patient was quite happy for the thorough and proactive care that we provided in the pharmacy, and was impressed by the breadth of the services available from the community pharmacy. And he commented saying that he didn't realize that pharmacies could do all this, and also appreciated the convenience and the accessibility of the service. And I also had another scenario recently as well, where a 40-year-old man just self-referred for a pharmacy first for sinus infection. And during the consultation, as a part of my usual making every contact count approach, I offered him a blood pressure check as well while doing that. And the gentleman, he initially declined, stating that he regularly attends the gym and believed that he was fit and healthy as he was only 40 years. But still, I just said, let me do the blood pressure check as well. And when I did the clinical blood pressure, his blood pressure was high. And I offered him the ABPM, but he denied, saying that he'll follow up with the GP. And a week later, he went to A&E for an unrelated eye problem. And even when the nurse at the A&E did his blood pressure, obviously his blood pressure was elevated as well. So he subsequently contacted the GP and was for his blood pressure check. And he was placed on the waiting list for the ABPM at the GP practice. He then returned back to the pharmacy and came to me to go for the ABPM. And at that time, I said, I will do your health check as well. And he quite happily came along for the appointment. And the ABPM result showed stage 2 hypertension for him. And the health check identified borderline raised cholesterol levels as well. And he disclosed he was a smoker as well. So obviously, all this have led to, he didn't know that he had all these underlying problems going on. So the lifestyle advice that was provided to him and education on the cardiovascular risk, diet, physical activity, and everything was a positive outcome for him. And the patient eventually agreed to go on the stop smoking program that we offer as a part of Healthy Living Pharmacy. So in both these cases, this highlights how community pharmacies can make every contact count, turn a routine flu vaccine appointment or a routine pharmacy for self-referral into an opportunity for preventive healthcare screening, early detection of cardiovascular risk, and timely clinical intervention. So I was quite pleased with all the outcomes that we come across while providing the services in the pharmacy. And as I know, some of you are new to the health checks, and with the training session that we had from Neil Hayden today, you might be having such sort of success stories in future, and we all look forward to hearing to them. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you, Kranthi and Hema. Some really good insights there. I hope it really inspires you to get your teams really involved. And I know we've got one message here, saying about being a small pharmacy in a small village, and maybe that's what it's about. That making every contact count. It's not siloing your services. It's kind of integrating them and talking about the other services when, you're doing a flu jab or whatever it may be. Don't just think about it as a flu jab. It's an opportunity to have another conversation, to really open up those 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 nice candid conversations about health. And I don't know if anyone's got anything you want to ask. I can't see any hands up at the moment, so I know we're running a bit low on time, so I shall just jump to a couple of slides that might be of interest to you. If you just bear with me a moment. Okay, so this was, I hope you can see it. This was Crancy's case study, for which the pharmacy got £50 vouchers. If you remember, we were doing that little competition back in October, which was great. And then if anyone needs to do the health check training, this is what you need. You go on to Shop on Clip, and you have an enrollment key here that you use for your health check training. And like Hema said, it might be that you want a number of staff to be involved with this. It's not lengthy. It's very much doable, and you can get yourself interested in the services that you provide, and they can be providing them as well. Now, I did talk some time back, I think that was in October actually, about Heart UK. If you go onto their website, they've got fantastic resources on there, with some various modules, and they're short modules, but they're around weight, cholesterol, and so if you want to gather up some further knowledge and just to sort of amplify those messages and to make you more confident in those conversations around cholesterol and weight, etc., these modules might be really nice for staff to do. Okay, so that is the website for that. Now, if you're contemplating providing the health check service, and you haven't got a cholesterol testing machine, you might want to use PocDoc. So a lot of our pharmacies are using this. So you don't have to actually purchase a device to provide your cholesterol test if you're using PocDoc. You are then only paying for the kits. So if you need more information about that, just contact me, email me, or phone me, and we can get you set up with PocDoc. So it's an app. Okay. And the other thing I wanted to mention was that we have, actually Neil mentioned it, the Essex Wellbeing Service, where you can refer people for weight management support on perhaps addressing, unhealthy relationships with food. Maybe just losing a bit of weight, it might be a little bit more than that. You can refer people to the Essex Wellbeing Service. And here is we have the exclusion criteria here. I've got the referral pathway here, so it wouldn't be on system one, but you can do it here. You can do it via email, or you can just go straight to the website, which is here, and you refer via the website. Or you can phone them. But you've got ways to refer to the Essex Wellbeing Service to help people manage their weight. So, it takes a bit of the burden off of you, I think, when you've got so much information that you've got to give to your client in front of you. And it's, you can say, well, would you like some help with your diet or perhaps your food choices? We can refer you. So it doesn't all have to be something that you have to manage yourself. I think that's the important thing. So access to these services are really easy for us. One of the other ones actually is Active Essex. And I will add that actually when I share these slides with you, because Active Essex provide so many different opportunities for people to get involved in exercise. That's another way of perhaps referring people to help them improve lifestyle. Okay, so while we've still got Neil here, is there anything you thought of that you'd like to perhaps ask Neil? Has anyone got anything? I'm just checking. We haven't really got any. No questions for Neil? Wow. Okay. So we'll share all the slides with you. And I will add the an active Essex slide for you. Thank you, all of you, for attending. We've had really good attendance today. There's been 34 or 35 of you today. Neil, great presentation. Thank you very much. Crantley and Hemmer, thank you so much for your time and your contributions to this this meeting today. Very helpful, and I hope we've inspired everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I'll just hang on, just in case anyone's got anything to ask me. But other than that, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, Neil. Chirag, is there something you wanted to ask me?
Yeah, very quickly, Lisa, actually. So, I know last time we spoke, it's regarding PocDoc, basically.
Yeah.
Had a chat with the girls about using the app, and they find it good. But one of the issues they have is that they have to duplicate too much on PocDoc and on farmer outcomes.